Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the program. For those of you who participated last night in the live stream, thanks for stopping in and hanging out. Fun was had by all. If you missed out, you can check it out in the catalog. It's recorded there, like all of the ones previously. So you might have missed out yesterday, but you're at work right now, you're feeling a little bit bored, and hell, you don't feel like being too productive. I got you covered. Hit the catalog and check out the live stream from last night. All right, so during that live stream, I was talking a little bit about how this month of March, I've dubbed it Mention It March. And what that means is I'm going to mention some of my friends' small businesses or people who create content or, anybody that is, self-employed or anything like that. I'm going to mention their content or their companies here on the podcast. And I think that it's a good idea for us all to support small businesses, right? After what we've been through, as a country and hell, as the world, I think it's super important that we rally behind small businesses right now, because I know for a fact that there's a lot of struggling going on. So I figured with our little bit of reach here on the podcast that I'd try and help out by mentioning a couple of these places, or more than a couple, obviously. Each day I'll mention a place or two or content that people have created, and hopefully it drives a little bit of traffic their way. Now, the first company or business that I'm going to be mentioning here on the podcast today is this place called Las Vegas Lighting here in Las Vegas. And it's mom and pop owned. They service the whole entire city, some very big clients, some casinos, and the people who own the company are some of the greatest, most solid people you're ever going to come across. Tyrone and Tabitha are great with the community. They give back, and they actually care about what's going on, right? So if you're in Las Vegas or you need some lights anywhere, you can check out their website and order lights as well. But definitely, if you're ever in Las Vegas or you have a business in Las Vegas, some sort of company function or anything like that, and you have any sort of lighting needs, make sure that you get in touch with Tyrone and Tabitha over at Las Vegas Lighting. What I'll do is I'll put their website in the description box. That way, for those of you who need something that has to do with lighting or anything like that, that could be your go-to spot, right? These are the kind of people where you definitely want to throw your business, much more than Home Depot or Ace Hardware or anything like that. So again, the name of their company is Las Vegas Lighting. So all your lighting needs, if you need to purchase anything, you're in Las Vegas, anything like that, make sure you contact them over there. They definitely will take care of you. All right, so we're going to talk today a little bit more about Indyke and Kahn. Now, there is an article out in the LongIslandPress.com, and the headline is, How Feds Say 2 Long Islanders Helped Jeffrey Epstein Run a Sex Trafficking Ring. So, we're probably going to rehash a bunch of stuff we know already in this article. But that's not the point. The point is that it's getting some pub, right? It's getting some legs. The Long Island Press is now talking about Darren Indyke and Richard Dick Kahn. So I think that is a positive development, and I figured we'd help them along here, and we'd give them a bit of a push by using this article on today's episode. So, this article is from the LongIslandPress.com. Headline, How Feds Say 2 Long Islanders Helped Jeffrey Epstein Run a Sex Trafficking Ring. This article was authored by Timothy Bolger. Two Long Islanders, who are the executors of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's $634 million estate, used a New York-based immigration attorney while forcing marriages on some of the late financier pedophiles' alleged international sex trafficking ring survivors, federal authorities say. Now, think about that statement for a moment, and then ask yourself, how in the world are these two guys the executors of the estate, and how are they not under criminal investigation? Now, these are big claims being made by Denise George and investigators in the Virgin Islands, right? These are very big claims. So, my question is, when are we going to see these civil complaints turn into criminal complaints? Because if anybody has ever needed to be questioned under oath, it is certainly Indyke and Kahn. Denise George, the U.S. Attorney for the Virgin Islands, where Epstein's secluded, so-called pedophile island is located, filed papers February 10th in the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands, naming Dick Kahn, an accountant from Watermill, and Darren Indyke, an attorney from Glen Cove, with being indispensable captains in the criminal enterprise. Now, let me just stop right there for a moment and let's talk about this. If you were called a captain, an indispensable captain of criminal enterprise, and your last name ended in a vowel, do you really think that you'd be the executor of somebody's estate? Having these two clowns as Jeffrey Epstein's executor would be like having John Gotti and Sammy the Bull as the executors for Paul Castellano. Talk about counterproductive. You know, when you're in like the cartoons, when you see people walk and they step on like the rake and it comes up and blasts them in the face? Yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, when you're called an indispensable captain of a criminal enterprise, there should be no questions asked. There should be no nonsense. You should be swooped up and you should be charged. You should not be the executor of the estate of the person who you're being alleged to have helped facilitate all of this. How in the world is any of that okay? How is it not a conflict of interest? And how are there not levers that can be pulled to fix it? Indyke and Kahn participated with Epstein in coercing his sex trafficking survivors in at least 3 cases to enter into arranged and forced marriages in order to obtain immigration status for foreign women so that they could continue to be available to Epstein for his abuse. And when you just think about that, what the charges are, right? And you see how crazy these allegations are. The big question I have for Denise George and the Virgin Islands at this point is, why is it only civil though? Let's get this going criminally, and let's really get these people up against it. Now remember, Indyke and Kahn have never even been deposed under oath. Neither of these guys have spoken under oath. Neither of them have went on the record. So how do we know what the hell is going on with these two morons? One thing certainly is clear, though, and we don't need, court-introduced evidence to see it. Obviously, Indyke and Kahn were integral parts of Jeffrey Epstein's operation. All you have to do is take a look at the circumstantial evidence. The Mount Everest high pile of circumstantial evidence. 97 trips to the ATM to structure money coming out. That alone should have him in prison. So it makes me wonder what's going on. Are Indyke and Kahn being turned as we speak? Who knows? Right? Like I said during the live stream last night, I'll never sit here and BS you and act like I know what's going on behind the scenes. But one thing I am definitely sure of is there is a lot of commotion happening right now. And people are being offered deals, I'm sure. There's all kinds of wheeling and dealing occurring behind the scenes. What that entails, I wish I had that information. I do not. A doubly deep assault on their will and dignity. George, whose office first sued the estate last year, alleged in court documents, The survivors understood that there would be consequences, including serious reputational and bodily harm, if they refused to enter a marriage or attempted to end it. So these guys were facilitating the marriages, right? And do you think that, like, Indyke was a nice guy? Like, he was being nice to these girls? They were assets to these people. And Indyke and Kahn are no different, in my opinion. In fact, Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn are just as culpable as the core four from where I'm sitting. Indyke, Kahn, the core four, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Ghislaine Maxwell, at the very least, all must be prosecuted for what occurred here. And even that's not going far enough, in my opinion. As you all know, I'd love to see this pursued from a financial angle, because if that's the case, well, who knows what the cat'll bring home then. In each instance, Indyke and Kahn knowingly facilitated the fraudulent and coerced marriages, performing and securing the legal and accounting work involved. They can't even act like they don't know what's going on, like they weren't involved. These dudes, their signature is all over the place. Everywhere you look when it comes to Epstein with finances, or in this situation like we're talking about here, marrying these girls off against their will, every time you take a look, Indyke and Kahn have their fingerprints all over all of it. Epstein, 66, a registered sex offender who pleaded guilty in Florida to soliciting prostitution from minor girls. Minors can't be prostitutes. Killed himself, allegedly, in a Manhattan jail cell in 2019 while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges for allegedly abusing dozens of girls over the years. Epstein's many high-powered friends over the years have included former presidents Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, as well as Prince Andrew. And, I mean, if we sat here and talked about Epstein's contacts and friends throughout the years, we'd sit here for 2 hours, maybe more, going through all of the names, right? All of these people that rolled in these elite circles have been running for cover and trying to distance themselves from Jeffrey Epstein, when in reality, the facts certainly don't represent their representation of their relationships with him. They all are using the same playbook, right? They're all trying to run that marathon race away from him. And then, now that the fallout's coming hot and heavy, forget a marathon, it's time to sprint it home. And that's what you see here. All of these people that were hanging out with Epstein, flying around with him, palling around with him, every single one of them should come forward and speak to the FBI and just tell the FBI what they know, what they saw. Even if they think it's something that might not matter. You never know what sort of piece of the puzzle you hold if you were even around people like this. Kahn's ties to Epstein's organization date back years. Nonprofit records show. The accountant was listed as treasurer of the COUQ Foundation dating back to 2019 and as president of Gratitude America Ltd. Since 2015, tax records show. So, again, Kahn is another one of these MFs. Dick Kahn, who has slid under the radar for way too long. Another person who has somehow avoided taking responsibility for their part in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. Now, finally, Denise George has at the very least pulled the curtain back a little bit and slapped them with these civil violations. And I definitely think it opens the door for a criminal portion of this case as well. But when we're talking about Kahn and Indyke, I mean, they're right up there, folks, as important pieces in this enterprise as the core four or Ghislaine, in my opinion. So they should have the book thrown at them as well. Kahn and his wife Lisa, who also own an apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side, purchased their Watermill home for $1.5 million in 2016. Property records show. Must be nice, huh? Got an apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, got yourself a nice little pad and watermill out on Long Island. Must be nice to profit from ill-gotten gains. Why are these people not suffering from frozen bank accounts and all of the rest of it like any other average person in America would be? Go and take a look. You think I'm BSing you? Just go and take a look at the way the cases are prosecuted against the mafia. And look, I'm not trying to defend the mafia by any means. They're bad people, right? And if they do the crime, they should do the time. But I think it should be applied equally to everybody. And Kahn and Indyke should not be treated any different than regular street thugs, in my opinion. Why? Because they have some degrees and they're well spoken. They shouldn't be treated like a common thug, because that's what they are. Indyke, who reportedly worked for Epstein for more than 20 years before being tasked with handling the estate, graduated from Glen Cove High School in 1982, the press has reported. The pair's involvement in the Epstein scheme grew with time. Boy, that's an understatement, huh? These two guys were frickin' frack with Jeffrey Epstein, right? They were always there, always around, on the inside, and they definitely had their finger on the pulse. Kahn and Indyke organized, controlled, and directed almost every aspect of the Epstein enterprise, authorities alleged. They were officers in virtually every corporate entity that Epstein created to fund and conceal his activities. And this goes back to the FinCEN files, right? Now, we laid out the blueprint on how all of this works. We've talked about how they move the money, how they hide the money, all of that stuff. And that's what you see here. All of these LLCs, all of these companies, all of these slush funds, all of this was facilitated by Indyke and Kahn with direct involvement of Jeffrey Epstein's activities. So please, somebody, anybody out there, tell me how these dudes are not being charged yet. Also among Georgia's new claims in her amended lawsuit against the estate, the 76-page complaint alleged Kahn and Indyke directed, approved, enabled, and justified millions of dollars in payments that fueled the Epstein enterprise's sex trafficking, including payments to women who were forced to have sex with Epstein and or recruited others to be victimized. Authorities likened it to a sex trafficking pyramid scheme. And that was their lick, right? They would pay these girls, and it was hush money. But then it would give them the cover to say, well, they were prostitutes. I paid them. What are you talking about? In reality, it was hush money. And they were being threatened, and their passports were taken, and they were, threatened with personal and professional ruin, all of it. But the cover always is, well, she was a prostitute. I paid her. And that's what they stick to. And unfortunately, society has bought into that for way too long. And from where I'm sitting, it's time for that shit to end. For instance, about $12,000 per month for 8 months was withdrawn in 97 $1,000 increments from an Epstein account at an ATM that is just a short walk from Indyke's law office from June 2018 to February 2019, the suit alleged. And this is what we talked about, the structuring, right? This guy, he thought he was smooth, thought he was slick. And he was such a moron that he actually asked the people at the bank about structuring. Yeah, that's not going to get you hit with a SAR or anything, you epic moron. Euros for safe was the notation in some of 11 checks totaling $126,000 that Indyke wrote from the same account, and in some cases, he made large withdrawals, such as cashing a check for $100,000 in 2018, according to investigators. This guy was paid handsomely, huh? Seems like if you're a scumbag, you get paid real handsomely. Jeffrey Epstein, $158 million from Leon Black, Indyke and Kahn with their hands out. Everybody's wetting their beak, huh? Payments from this account, for which Indyke had signatory authority, totaling over $2,500,000, were made to dozens of women with Eastern European surnames, purportedly for hotel expenses, tuition and rent, and to, again, the immigration lawyer in New York who was involved in one or more forced marriages arranged among Epstein survivors to secure survivors' immigration status, authorities added. So that lawyer who was involved in that person needs to be arrested as well. Can we get a gigantic sting operation? Can we have the FBI kick in their door and arrest these people? What the hell are we waiting for? What's going on here? The claims are likely to further slow disbursement of funds to Epstein survivors. That's BS too. Here's an idea. Why should the survivors suffer? Get rid of Indyke, get rid of Kahn, and let's let these gals get their money and move on with their lives. Haven't they dealt with enough? Geez. Neither Mr. Indyke nor Mr. Kahn had any involvement in any misconduct by Mr. Epstein of any kind at any time, the executor's lawyer said in a statement. It is enormously regrettable that the Attorney General chose to level false allegations and to unfairly malign the co-executor's reputation without any proof or factual basis. What? No proof has been provided? And what reputation, by the way? These two dudes have the same reputation as insert any scumbag here, and that's the sort of reputational power that these people have. If we were doing a social credit score, they would have a negative 100. So what do you mean their reputation? Why is his name all over the Epstein stuff? Can you answer that for me? Why is Kahn's signature everywhere? Why is Indyke's signature everywhere? Why were they facilitating sham marriages? And the real question is, why have they not been charged yet? If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I'll be back later on, and we'll pick up where we left off.